Hey there, my friends, it's Glenn, and I find myself in Fairbank, Arizona, a contemporary town of Tombstone, and right down the road from that legendary town. If we could rewind the clock and go back in time, we would see a old railroad passing right through here. Before some of you get too excited, this video is not about Fairbank, because we've already filmed Fairbank. I did a piece on this a couple of years ago, and if you're interested in this town, Fairbank, I'm going to put a link in the description so you can go check that video out, maybe after this one. But there is something related to Fairbank that we're going to seek out that I was not able to go see last time I was here, which is going to be across the road over this way, another historic property, probably a lesser well-known one than Fairbank. There's an old ranching operation with buildings that date back to the very early 1900s that I believe the BLM maintains today. Like I said, on the other side of the road, called Little Boquillas Ranch is what we're going to go seek out. Something, if everything's still there and intact, there's probably 4 or 5 like really interesting buildings that date back to the turn of the century, the early 1900s. So, and as we walk out that ways, I'll give you a little bit more in-depth history about that. But I actually parked, a lot of great parking out here in Fairbank, and I actually parked on this side, but there is a parking lot on the other side for the ranch that we're going to go seek out in these historic buildings. All right, so back to the truck and across the road we go to seek out what we came here for. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is hot, and not only hot, the humidity is noticeably different, much higher here than where I left in Phoenix this morning, or the way it's been in Phoenix. So we are further south, not far from the Mexican border technically. So I don't know what's accounting for this higher humidity right now, but man, it's a little uncomfortable. This is always a fun sign, this type of sign to see. It's a good warning because we are going to be hiking in rattlesnake country. So this is what we've actually come seeking out here, the Little Boquillas Ranch, part of the San Pedro Riparian National Conservation Area. So this is what we're going to hike out and find, although there's already some infrastructure out here that we can study right off the bat. And you'll see another BLM sign over there that says Fairbank Historic Town Site. That's where we just came from. So if you're familiar with Fairbank, you literally just come out on the street here, right across here. And I suppose you could park over there and walk over here too if you prefer. But anyway, the first thing that I see is an old corral. So let's go check that out. We'll look at the corral, then I'll give you information about what it is I think we're gonna go look at here today. So I wanted to start off and come take a closer look at this thing here. I've read about this. It's an old corral. I don't have exact dates on a lot of things that we're gonna see today. Just some very basic information. And this thing in particular, I did not get any info about. I mean, it clearly looks like it's been painted or stained with that reddish orange color. And there's some older wood in the background, but being that this was a ranch, I'm assuming this belonged to the historic operation, which I think operated well into the 1900s. So I'm not trying to make any claims that you're looking at an 1800s corral out here. And I don't really know if this is even still in use. We'll kind of come peeking here, keep an eye out for critters, of course, because we now know they have them out here, according to the other sign that I had. But anyway, and I promise you we're going to be seeing something more interesting than what I'm coming back here to take a peek at. But I do see, like, you know, piles of rocks, maybe old, you know, rocks used in a foundation for a building or something. And you do see some twisted, gnarled metal, like corrugated, what looks like roofing from maybe old buildings that have deteriorated with time on this property. But what we're seeking, I think, is going to be a mile or two deeper into the habitat. So we got some walking to do. So with that being said, I'm gonna actually get a backpack, bring my cameras and the drone, so we can maybe utilize that to get some good footage of the actual historic buildings that we're seeking out. So as soon as I get back to the truck, I'm gonna mount up, double check my offline map, make sure I know which direction to walk in, and then we're just gonna hit it. Oh, and sunblock, that is a must. Big time must. So it looks like, yeah, we're back here at the corral following this old road here. Clearly you could see they don't allow access for people to drive on this road. So this conservation area, I think, is kind of like that, where there's lots of hiking. I imagine if you're a local, live in Tombstone or something and like to walk, this must be a fantastic area, because I know of other things that we have yet to seek out. Old Spanish ruins, I think an old Presidio out on the other side of the road, and lots of things that we didn't get to even do last time. So, but I am excited though to attack this side of the road. I guess while we're walking, it's a good a time as any to give some background on what it is we're seeking out. So in order to do that, I think the best thing to start with is, of course you've had man living out here well before even the Spanish arrived in this area. We talk about that on the show all the time, but we're gonna fast forward to when the very ground that I walk on was not yet the United States. So it would have been Mexico. At the point in history, I think, where our story begins. Before we get started, there's actually an old building on this side over here, which is not one of the ones that I came here for, but I think it might be historic. So we're gonna very carefully walk back here. We got some shade anyway because it's hot. I'll take any reprieve we can get. So keep in mind, like I said, there was a lot of railroad history back here. I couldn't tell you exactly where the rails went, but you could see a lot of concrete foundations to mount some kind of equipment. So I'm not quite sure what this would have been. I don't know if I doubt that there's a mine right here. I could be wrong, but you could see this thing does look like it's got age. And back here is what I was talking about. You could see all of these old concrete remnants back this ways. And what do you know about this, actually? I do want to be very careful in places like this, especially for bees. But look at this. What do we got here? Just some kind of really large looking boiler or something. Are we safe in here? I think we're good. I don't hear any buzzing. I don't hear any snakes. But definitely some old piece of infrastructure. And then this doodad, I don't know what this actually is. If you see things in the mining industry like this, I could tell you it says giant in letters, giant duplex. So anybody know anything about this? I did not see anything about this in my studies. I wasn't searching for it, so you'll have to forgive me. But it's cool regardless, because it definitely could tell its age. And I'm gonna guess this had something to do with the railroad, since the railroad had to have passed like literally right by here, but I really don't know what they were doing. So, but being as though this is not what we came here for, I just wanted to take a quick look and we'll head on out. But you could see really big rusty pipe also right outside over there too. Okay, so back to what we were saying earlier. If you've watched our channel for a long time, we talk about this thing called the Gadsden Purchase, which I think the whole process took a couple years, but I think 1853 is the date I commonly see used to describe when what the land we're walking on right here officially became the United States. when the United States purchased land south of the Gila River. So everything up to like about as far north as Gila Bend in the Gila River used to be Mexico, including this very land that we're walking on now. So this land at that point, by that point in time, would have been very heavily populated by Mexicans. Probably well before you saw too many folks from the East Coast wandering around out here in the 1830s. It was Mexico, Mexicans, and Apache, primarily battling it out. Blood, with lots of blood in this region, lots of violence, but that's, you know, bring yourself back to that time. And I thought it was appropriate to start in Fairbank, because that's part of this story, is that once this became the U.S., I think it sounds like the U.S. honored the Mexican land grant. So if someone was a Mexican ranching this land, they were able to retain rights to the land after the Gadsden purchase. But it was still a pretty remote region up until the point this little town you may have heard of called Tombstone sprung up right down the road. So now we'll kind of talk about the age of Tombstone. As all of you probably know who watch this, very few anymore don't know. You know, silver was discovered in Tombstone. And then by the 1880s, obviously Tombstone was a booming town, a big town that attracted a lot of people, right? The ranch, the land grant, I think extended to the north side of the road, even up to where that old mill that we saw a couple years back is, if I'm understanding that correctly. So it's a very sizable piece of land. And once settlers started coming out here, there was a lot of squatters that just ended up taking residence on this ranch land. And once that became more of a problem, eventually people were kind of booted off the land. And I want to say there is a cattle company or something, maybe even out of Colorado, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm trying to recall some of the facts that I read. But essentially, that's kind of bringing us closer to the time frame, I think, of what we're going to be seeing today. And what that is, by the way, I don't think we're going to see anything that dates back to the 1800s or the old Wild West days out here. Although it is fascinating to think about what characters may have set foot on this very land that we're on from the whole Tombstone saga. Did any of the Earps come out here? Any of the villains from the movies, the real versions of those people? Highly possible. But anyway, we're going to be seeing some buildings that the BLM, I believe, maintains. Very old, well over 100 years old, but we're talking about the early 1900s. And the note that I read stated that, I think the BLM claims that the buildings that we're going to see were all in place by 1910. But I couldn't get exact dates on each specific building, but they look cool, assuming they all still stand. So it's part of why I wanted to go out here today, is in 2026, to see what the state of things are. So I'm kind of walking down the road and looking off to the left and right, and you do see old infrastructure out here. That's a very old looking power line. The lines are down and it's the only one standing, but I presume that is a relic from an older time. I am over halfway on our walk, and it is brutally hot. There's no shade on this road at all. Flies are just pestering me. But we're getting it done. But I wanted to show you, I kept seeing that railroad bed out to the right. It comes close to this road at times, so I'm pretty sure, I'd say I'm 100% sure now that it's a continuation of that railroad. And there's some more evidence. There's an old bridge right there, a concrete bridge that it would have gone over. So, and it's heading right towards this ranch. So I have to assume that this not only served the mining industry back in the day, but certainly the cattle industry. They probably loaded cattle up onto the railroad, and maybe that building we saw in the beginning had something more to do with the cattle industry, I would imagine, than mining. Still not sure what those doodads were in there, those gears, but probably something having to do with that. As we get closer, you can see more power lines, and you can see those glass, I assume it's some kind of glass connectors. I don't know the name of those things, but you see them on old things just like this, and you now see a whole set of them. There were a few of them here and there, but some of these are still intact, even now. But because of those like glass shaped, those dome shaped things that the wires go through, I need to learn the name of what that is. But you see what I'm saying? Definitely not any modern type of electric infrastructure or electricity infrastructure, and I assume it's making a beeline for our ranch, which I do believe I read they did have power eventually out there, which would make sense. And you could see now those lines perfectly follow this road. Really gives this road kind of an antique feel, doesn't it? There's a perfect view of that railroad bed that I keep referring to. There's no railroad ties, no rails left, just the bed. But you can see how it's elevated and just perfectly level. And it's been following the road this whole time, and it kind of comes closer to the road like it is now, and then at times it kind of meanders away back and forth. But I suspect, like I said, straight at this ranch if I had to guess. But there it is, good view for you. I've noticed a lot of these too, these wooden posts, which to me, there's your rail bed. Actually, let's go up there, but they look like railroad ties to me, and that would make sense. They probably put up this as fencing at some point, I assume, when they disassembled this railroad. But there's a walkway right up here, so we could probably get up here no problem. It is loose dirt, but not that bad. But yeah, check it out. It's a really perfect view of it. So now I'm more sure than ever. You're looking like at an old railroad bed. I don't have info though about the years of operation. I'm gonna guess some of these railroad beds we know went back to the age of Tombstone's heyday. I wouldn't be surprised if this part of it too, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it was like maintained and updated over the years. So maybe it serviced more modern railroads at some point, but I almost want to walk on this and continue on this instead of the road, but I don't know how far off course we're gonna get. So I'm gonna stick to what I plan to be safe, but this is actually an excellent view to show you and to confirm with our own eyes what we're looking at here. All right, we are at the bend of the road. You see a gate, presumably the entrance to this ranch back in the day, the property line if I had to guess. Power lines continue that way, but I think the buildings are gonna be off this way somewhere. Looks like we actually have to cross the railroad tracks. In fact, we're going right up here on the bed. So this thing did pass right by the ranch proper, or the property that we're seeking out today. So I suspect right on the other side of this, I think I already see some fencing and stuff where the actual property is. So I think it's right down there. And here's your railroad bed. We're crossing the tracks, everybody. Let's double check left and right. I almost wonder if you could walk the bed all the way back though. Anyway, more trees and some shade actually. Some much needed reprieve, but I'm expecting to see buildings, and there they are. There they are, folks. See that? And there's some buttes. At least one butte I can already see. I know there's a barn out here. Some of these look like they've been kind of slightly modernized with modern doors on them and stuff. So we're gonna try to walk. We will walk out this ways, but I wanna kind of start over here where it looks like maybe more of the main attraction, but I think everything we're looking for today will kind of maybe start at this far end and work our way back up this way. But you're actually looking at this historic ranch now and old buildings. I think what we see on the left here, I know there's I think it was the ranch foreman's house, one of these bigger houses that we're gonna see. Maybe that one right there, in fact. Now, I know they're all boarded up and you can't go in these, so maybe we'll just take a look here. This is one of those American heritage sites. Basically, don't take or vandalize anything. And you can see BLM manages this. I hear some buzzing though, like bee buzzing now. So I really want to be very careful about that out here. So here we are, folks, the historic Little Boquillas Ranch. We're actually here. I think I'm going to start on these buildings here, these main ones. And I've got my drone, so I do want to get some aerial photography of this out here, which I may do sooner than later. I don't want, since I got the place to myself. But first, let's go check out some of these. Now, they don't have interpretive signs out here. I wasn't expecting that. It's kind of going off of Wikipedia, and I think it had pictures, and I want to say this is the ranch foreman's house. They do have glass on the windows though, so we could try to peek in, see what we see in there. Maybe we'll see a ghost or something, or quite possibly nothing of extreme interest, but you can see a hallway in there and some painter's tape. Maybe someone's maintaining it. Look at this beauty. A full brick house out here on this ranch. I presume, once again, very likely a living quarters of some sort. These look too fancy to be for animals or like a workshop or something like that. I mean, look at the arches on the windows. There were lots of windows, a door in the middle, and look at the roof, the old wooden tile roof. So I love stuff like this because it's almost like kind of an Arrested Decay maybe type scenario where they've at least boarded things up to keep the elements out, but how interesting. And there's a good example of some of the stuff I noticed on some of those buildings coming in. Look up on the roof. That's a swamp cooler. If you're not from Arizona, it's a form of air conditioning that we have out here, especially on older homes. It relies on evaporation. I've never experienced one. I hear they work well out here. I think they're more energy efficient, and they're good in the summer when there's humidity in the air. So I'm guessing this particular house is clearly not occupied now, but I'm guessing maybe in the last few decades someone was still living out here before it became part of the habitat, and they had a form of air conditioning here, a modern form. So clearly that's not 1910s technology up on the roof there. And I do see evidence of electricity in two different forms. Number one, there's a light fixture, an old looking light fixture, but nonetheless a light fixture above the door. We of course really can't know when the electricity was added. Was it here in the very beginning or added later? Because it wasn't uncommon for old places to be retrofitted. But you can actually see an old fuse box here. And we can actually come over here. It looks like the window is busted in, so I'm not gonna go inside. But we can hopefully get a nice little look. Oh shit. There's a rattlesnake under there. I'm out of there. I don't see it. I think it's in that it's that hole. You hear it? I know snakes like to live underneath metal like that. I was thinking that very thing. So let's back on out. I want to say, I may have seen movement. I want to say it might be in that hole right underneath that window. It's why you got to be so careful in places like this. But its rattle is working correctly because it got loud fast. I had no problem calling it what it was as soon as I heard it. And I was thinking about it as I was stepping on that wood. I was like, I don't know if there's anything under there or what's going on, but it's still rattling. Whew, that gave me a start. I'm not gonna lie. Because it's like every time I explore these kinds of places, I always say things like, you know, let's watch out for the snakes. And of course you never see them, because that's one point I wanna make, is I know I walk by them all the time. I'm not naive. But the point is, these snakes typically leave you alone. Well, they always leave you alone. They're never gonna come after you. And they do tend to not even, they try to camouflage and hide. That's why you almost never see them, because they're so good at camouflaging and hiding that essentially, like you're gonna walk right by them and never know. They want nothing to do with you. And I've seen that behavior. This one's cornered. So now it's resorting to a warning, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. The danger could be if it didn't make that noise and I was leaning up against that window with my, you know, my exposed ankle or something right by that hole. But notice, you know, like I was telling you, walking up there, I was mindful. I was on the lookout for something like that, fully not expecting to see it. And because in that moment I had that thought in my mind, boom, it all came together and we got out safely. But yeah, when you see like old roofing like that and boards, I'm guessing it was either under the wood or in that hole. And I'm not gonna find out which it was. We're gonna leave it be. Yeah, but we're gonna be uber careful around this thing, because there's just wood and lots of hiding spots for that, like right there in that pile. I'm willing to bet. How much are you guys willing to bet if I went in there and started shaking the wood around, we'd hear another rattle? Oh, there's a fox. Or actually, maybe not a fox. I think I may have actually just seen a coyote. Yeah, this area's got a lot of shade. And here's another thing. I'm gonna try to find a very clear entry point. I'm afraid to walk through here at this point. There's lots of metal and debris back here. And hello, snakes. I know you're here, dude. I know you're around here. And going inside this thing, it's hot now, and there's nice cool air in there. I just got bad snake vibes. I'm not afraid of them. I'm just trying to be smart, to be very clear. And one of the dangers is, like I said, they don't want to be messed with. So they typically will stay still, sometimes until the last possible moment. And when you have human eyes like mine, like I'm looking in here and it's bright out here where I'm standing, and that's in the shade. So my human eyes, I can't even really see well in this like old coupe or whatever it is. My camera can see better, but I am very hesitant today, boy. Isn't this beautiful though? This property here. And yeah, that animal I saw, it was kind of like orange, like goldish orange in color. It ran pretty quick. At first I thought it was like a red fox, but then I barely got a glimpse of it. It looked different than that though, and I'm wondering if it was a coyote, which I believe is kind of like related to raccoons. And I've never seen those before, but whatever it was got out of here quickly. So if coyotes typically don't run that fast, then I don't think it was that. But if coyotes can run fast, then whatever it was ran straight back there into the woods. I come over here very carefully because I do have a pretty clear line. I don't see anything. Kind of kicking up dirt, trying to make noise. And we'll look inside there actually. There's beautiful brickwork in there. So what do you suppose this was? Another residence, maybe? Very cool. We're kind of winding back around over here to where the snake is, or was, I don't know. But you see how there's little holes on the bottom. I think it's in there, but I can't be for sure. I can't be for sure. And it's not worth the risk to me to find out here. Anyway, clearly now I'm hyper vigilant, which is not a bad thing. Probably more so than definitely more so than I already was. That definitely got the good old adrenaline going, because I was right up on that thing and I still couldn't see it. That's what scares me the most. All right, let's kind of circle back around this thing here and see if we see anything cool. If we see any snakes up against the foundation in the shade, maybe. I'd have to guess by now our snaky friends are all taking cover. But yeah, this is a really cool looking structure. I don't know if we can use that tile to date, you know, because clearly they had the swamp cooler on the other side of this, and that's not like wooden shingles. That looks more like the tar kind of more modern shingles. So I'm guessing that's what we're seeing here. But we'll get a look here at the side of this beautiful old structure. I don't know if some of these big old trees out here are some type of oak tree. There's a big one out there, whatever it is. I'm gonna guess some type of an oak. I'm sure someone out there knows, and then you're probably already on top of it in the comments, but we'll look back that way, is where we saw or heard our snake friend, and hopefully that's the last one of the day. I expended my adrenaline reserves on that one. So from my remembrance, I want to say one of these was a ranch foreman's house, and probably some kind of other offices or living quarters back there. And I know our editor will put things up on the screen as she confirms them. I don't have the internet out here, so going off of my memory, and I've done a lot of research for this trip on way more than this place, so my brain can only handle so much. Now you can see an old corral back here, it looks like, and we know the railroad is right out that way, so I am really thinking, putting two and two together, you had this ranch, they would have corralled cattle out here and loaded them up on the railroad, if I had to guess. But this is the old barn, so this is a beauty here. I read a blog of someone that was out here, I don't know, in the years ago, and whoa, I heard a weird noise, but it was just that giant door kind of creaking open. It's like, what is that? But essentially, the person was surmising that this would not be standing in a few years. Well, here I am a few years later, and I'm happy to report that it is. Now, I am so hesitant though I just got to take a look and see how I feel about this going in here, because you hear that? It's creepy. You can see modern lighting actually up in there, but you're looking into the barn. It's this really large door that you keep hearing. If you hear the creaking noise, it's this. And I guess if we're careful, I can actually see pretty clearly here. So I'm less afraid to poke my head in here at least, but you could see all this leftover stuff. A lot of metal artifacts, but I would say for my friend out there that was concerned about the barn falling, it looks like it's in pretty dang good shape to me for its age. But you know what I would find if I were to start messing around in here and start lifting up this stuff. And no, I am not brave enough for that. Forget about it. It's about as good as I'm gonna do. I can tell you though, this shade is worth the risk of coming across another rattler, because it is so hot and humid out there. I'm telling you, man. Wonder if bats roost up here. If so, I can't see them with my own eyes. That ceiling's pretty high. But yeah, surprisingly no bees or anything in here either. It seems pretty clean and clear of anything. There's one other structure over here that I want to say my memory is telling me this was a blacksmith workshop. But another situation where I'm really just hesitant getting up on these windows because of some tall grass there. It's the kind of spot where you might expect problems. I know I'm not being the best explorer today, but hopefully you'll forgive me. Anything here, I'm very carefully trying to look. I see some evidence to support this was some kind of a workshop. My camera's leaning in. I'm a couple feet back from the camera's position, but I do see shelves built in here. And you see some lights hooked up to the ceiling there too. Some old chains bolted to the wall for whatever reason. Anyway, so far I would say this exceeds my expectations. I mean, I've seen pictures of it all, but being here in person always makes it better. And that dang door, you hear it? Freaks me out, man. It doesn't sound like a door at first. It sounds like there's an animal or something there. And I look and I'm like, oh, it's just the door. I kind of noticed this kind of late in the game, but isn't that like an old gas pump of some sort? What is this thing, do you suppose? The glass almost looks too good to be true. It's got numbers in it, 0 through 10. And what do we got here? I can't make that out. It's something pump company in Texas. Southwest might come out better on video. Underwriters Laboratories inspected. Visible measure discharge for hazardous liquids. So I'm guessing it's a fuel pump of some sort. I'm guessing this doesn't budge. Actually, that still moves. So I want to pump some fuel here into me. How cool is that, though? I'm wondering if the numbers in there, 0 through 10, if that's gallons. And you would visibly see the liquid or something up there in that container. I'm not sure how these things worked. Would you pump up manually liquids up high like that? And then gravity would then be used to feed it through a hose into a tractor or some kind of vehicle, I presume, something along those lines. I don't really understand the technology we're looking at. Anyway, this is a fantastic little find. I mean, I shouldn't say a find as if I've discovered it, right? But you know what I mean. This is actually, you know, if you're wanting to to explore the area around Tombstone to find history, and you're kind of confused about what in Tombstone is real history versus reconstructed history versus just completely fabricated history, you got it all there. It's places like this in Fairbank that I really like finding, that are on the periphery of Tombstone, because I love Tombstone. I love the history, and I certainly love the stories and the legends associated with Tombstone, and have for a very long time in my life. So if you're into that stuff, I just think it makes it cooler to roam about the lands outside of there, because you know there are people. We know there are people ranching out here during that time frame on this very land that we stand on, and then well beyond, when they would have built all this infrastructure and this housing out here. Fantastic. And I'm getting one last look here at the property before we walk all the way back up that road, back north to the parking lot. I'm estimating a good couple miles, and flies galore. And we'll take one more look over here towards the gas pump or whatever that was, fuel pump, that old blacksmith shop, and of course that beautiful old barn. And on the way out, I'll kind of swing around that way, and we'll look at some of these other buildings that have more modern touches on them, like modern doors, and we'll maybe surmise as to what those might be. Anyway, another one marked off my list, Little Boquillas Ranch. Known about this for a good couple, 2-3 years, something like that. And have always meant to come here, and I made it to Fairbank that one time and didn't have time to do this, so I kind of tabled it and finally got back down this way as I always do, and got to see a beautiful piece of history here. I think I covered all of the main buildings that you'll read about, and we probably ID'd, at least with text on the screen, if I didn't get it right, or my surmising wasn't right, or trying to remember. But there are some other satellite buildings like this shed here. We didn't really fully explore the corral. So I left some meat on the bone, but I think we primarily did get to see like the main ones you'll read about online if you go to Wikipedia or similar sites that have info like that. I thought I saw a sign saying no camping, but there clearly is a overgrown campsite here with a fire ring. You can tell it hasn't been used. There's vegetation growing out of it, but maybe a nice little camp spot. This tree over here is nice and shady and cool. You stay in the shade, it's not bad. It's just the sun and the humidity. Here's one of the ones I was talking about. It's all metal. It's got electricity, it looks like. I don't know if it's on or not. Looks like there was a meter there or something. I don't know if it's operational. And they've got bars over the window. So I'm going to guess this is stuff the BLM might use today. I mean, I don't want to take any guesses, but it feels more modern to me than anything we've been looking at. So I'm going to guess not of the era. Could be wrong. And you've got another one over there, kind of similar in construction. It looks like it's metal all around, no wood on the walls, just like corrugated metal. And you could see some modern fencing material stacked up over there. So I'm gonna guess just storage probably for the BLM if I had to guess. But nothing of particular interest, I would say. So I'm gonna head back to the road. All right, one last look at where we came from. The rattlesnake was over that ways, and I'm out of here. And don't worry, all of you at home sitting on the couch in air conditioning, maybe watching this on a nice big screen television, I'm not going to trouble you with a hot walk back, the flies, the humidity. We're just going to transport you back to the truck and save you the trouble. And I gotta deal with it though. That's okay though. This boy needs exercise. Ooh, doggy. That is hot. I got back to the truck. I'm now across the street again over at the Fairbank parking lot. I wanted to find some shade to park the truck under. And I've just been sitting here for a few with the air condition running full blast. That is hot. That was the hottest hike I've done in recent memory. So I thought it was worth saying. I made it back okay, of course. And I would not recommend that hike. It's early June. You know, the temps down here, unlike Phoenix where it's running in the hundreds right now, is supposed to be running in the 90s. But it's that humidity, man. It's like, it reminds me a lot if you live in Texas, like San Antonio in the summer, or Austin in the summer, with a really high humidity. That's what it feels like. And it's the humidity, I think, that really sucked it out of me. I was not, you know, I look at the forecast, I'm like, oh, by that time in the morning, it'll only be at, you know, at the low 90s, upper 80s or whatever, but you toss that humidity in, man. And I tell you what, I bet you it's not that high of humidity compared to the Midwest or, you know, those areas of Texas that I'm referring to. But for someone like me that lives in a very dry climate, you notice it. You notice it big time. And I'm enjoying a nice, cold, refreshing beverage here that I desperately need. Drinking Vita Coco. It's a little treat. These things are my new favorite drink, even more. Used to love soda. Now I love these flavored coconut waters. I don't drink them often because I know there's sugar in it, but frosted lemonade. This is my favorite actually of these flavored ones. They have like strawberries and cream and orange cream. I would say the frosted lemonade is the most refreshing of the bunch. So Vita Coco, I'll sponsor. If you want to sponsor me, I'll definitely push your products, no problem. And boy, did I earn it. So yeah, little Boquillas Ranch. That was awesome. That was I would say it's on, I've got a long bucket list if you haven't noticed already, but that was an important one that I really needed to mark off my list of sites in Arizona. Just when you think there's nothing left to discover, there's always something out there, and that's kind of proof of it. Woo. So I'm gonna leave that here now. I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my beverage, plot a course to my next video today. I've got a couple more to make today, a couple more places to visit. New doggy, I don't know, man, in this heat. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed our little adventure today. And as I just revealed, there's going to be more like this in the upcoming weeks. See you next time.